something like that happens to you, especially as a former atheist, you really, at least for me, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's because of my background in music and film and stuff, this idea that you kind of want to share these things, you know. You make a weird experimental music track and, you know, it's not enough sometimes to just listen to it in your basement or whatever. You want to share it with other people. I think in a lot of ways, getting involved in this, you know, trying to do this channel has really kind of brought together all the things that I really loved when I was younger, which was, you know, making music, graphic design, trying to do narratives. You know, when I was younger, I didn't have much of a story to tell, and every time I would try to write a screenplay, it would kind of, you know, it'd get to this point where I was like, eh. And then it wasn't until I was older, you know, sometimes I feel like you have to go through some hard times before you really have an interesting story to tell. To me, you know, the story of an atheist who wakes up is kind of like a pretty epic story. So in a lot of ways, when I woke up to all this stuff, I sort of realized that I had this perfect narrative in my own life that I found to be pretty compelling, of just, you know, somebody who's just really refusing to take spirituality seriously. You know, that was me for most of my life. I knew something was missing, but I always thought it was, you know, maybe that's just part of the human condition. And to some degree it might be. But I really feel like even people who are raised with religion, you still have to sort of come to it on your own terms as an adult. And I think that's why Christianity, you know, very wisely talks about having a personal relationship with God or Jesus. And, you know, when I was an atheist, that concept was so alien to me. You know, how do you have a personal relationship with God? Like, what does that even mean? I don't know, like, I kind of started this because I had this maybe naive or misplaced idea that this could help people. And it seems like it has, you know, here and there. And I have found that mostly it's like a lot of people that were raised with religion but then fell out of it. It seems like there's something about the shared story, the way this has kind of worked out, that appeals to people who were religious but then fell out and then came back to it because they kind of realized, like, oh wait, there are atheists out there who still have these experiences. And that was a big deal for me too, was realizing, like, oh, there's people in the Bible who've had these same experiences. Having these weird dreams, they meet these strange beings who then show them the future. It seems to be a recurring pattern. It's pretty wild, right? I mean, you know, the spiritual universe is real, and I still can't get over it. I think a lot of that is like why I started doing these videos, because it's just such an unbelievable story. It's hard to believe that this stuff is real sometimes. And again, I'm coming at this from 39 years of hardcore atheism, so to find out that this stuff is real is still, you know, it's been 11, 12 years now since I woke up, and it still surprises me. Even after all this time, as I've said. And I asked earlier about how do you develop a better relationship with the ego, or a healthier relationship with the ego. I think that's what meditation really is trying to do. You know, I've had a lot of friends who try meditation, like, oh, it just doesn't work. I'm just not doing it right. And I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about what you're trying to accomplish with meditation, you know, because it's not about like silencing the voice in your head. It's not about like controlling your thoughts. It really is, to me, just about learning about the nature of your mind. It's like you're sort of charting, you know, if you picture it as like this ocean, you know, you're charting something that's constantly moving and constantly changing, so you have to get really good at swimming, let's say, you know. And, you know, if the water is your thoughts, I really like the river analogy. Yeah, right? Like they say, and they struggled with meditation because they thought they had to be quiet and still. And it's like, well, yeah, that's a nice thing to experiment with. Yeah, that's an experiment to do. Try to silence your mind. Give it a shot. Meditation is different for everyone. That's another thing too, is like, I think we all tend to think that other people think like we do. Tai Chi and Qigong, yeah. I mean, I just read something recently, like it's surprising how simple some of these things can be. You know, everybody's looking for this cure for their anxiety, and a lot of times it's really just physical activity. Physical activity, just like, you know, in a lot of yoga practices, it's like focusing on your breathing is just enough to get a little bit of space between you and your ego so that the ego doesn't constantly take over. And, you know, to me, it's like you're building a muscle, you're strengthening a muscle that you didn't know you had and that you've never flexed it consciously. You know, and you're trying to flex this muscle. People don't realize how anxious they are sometimes. There's a funny thing too about the difference between anxiety, like a negative anxiety, and something that's more akin to like a desire to act, like an inspirational sort of thing. That's how I differentiate. Is like negative anxiety is like worrying. Positive anxiety is like, it's a feeling in your body that's trying to get you to act. It's trying to motivate you to move. And whatever's causing the anxiety, like to try to help dissipate it or make it more manageable, you know, you focus on your breathing. Or you do some physical activity, which is going to, you know, it's kind of like forcing your body to focus on the breathing. You're upping your heart rate. You know, and I think we all forget, you know, myself included, like how active human beings had to be back in the day. I sit at this computer for hours, and then if I'm feeling anxious, it's like, well, yeah, no wonder you've been sitting there for hours. So get up and move, do something. And I feel like a lot of times too, anxiety is a proper reaction sometimes. Like I feel like a lot of young people, it's like they're anxious and they're not sure why. And it's like, well, you're anxious because when you're young, you got stuff you got to do. And you should be anxious because life is unforgiving. I don't mean it like literally you should be anxious. I just mean, you know, it's a normal response, and you have to develop strategies, you know, to how to use the anxiety to get you to you know, develop yourself. And that might be developing a hobby that can become a career. It could be mastering a skill, you know, and I think that's another thing that is missing from a lot of people's lives, is the idea of mastering something. Even if it's just some kind of crafty thing, you know, like your basket weaving or whatever, like, you know, the idea of mastery, if you can master one thing, it does teach you a lot about a lot of different things. And going through the process of becoming a master usually means that you're capable of teaching someone else. And I feel like that's another thing that's really missing from a lot of people's lives is this idea of mentoring someone else who's younger or more inexperienced in something that you've become an expert at.